The art of directing comes from so much more than pointing a camera and shooting. Everything has to tell a story. Whether it's what kind of vehicle the character has, the color the character wears, or what surroundings the character is in. All tells a greater story that reinforces the message or theme of the piece. This is what makes a movie or a show. Without a theme or a message, it's not art. And if it's not art, it's not a movie or a show. If every picture says 1,000 words, then a movie should have 1,000,000. Cowboy Bebop is an excellent example of how storytelling should be told through the use of symbolism. It fills every second with a deeper message, like foreshadowing death when one of the antagonists die in the game.
Oh man, I'm dead.
Where you fellas going? This is a warehouse district. There's nothing up ahead but...
Or when Rashid lights Spike's cigarette, fire is symbolic of knowledge, like in Plato's allegory of the cave.
Are you looking for a bean shop, my friend?
Something Rashid proceeds to bestow onto Spike. His large flame is symbolic that he probably has more knowledge than Spike needs. But when the antagonist Vincent talks about purgatory,
Know much about purgatory?
to a man who had no ill intentions, but still helped Vincent cause destruction for money,
I'm gonna be living in style after this.
implying that's where he'd be sent. Even the title of the show, Cowboy Bebop, is symbolic to their lives. Cowboy, meaning bounty hunter,
He called you a cowboy. What did he mean?
Just a humble bounty hunter, ma'am.
and bebop referring to improvising in jazz, improvising their lives.
Oh well, whatever happens, happens.
And them being bounty hunters is symbolic to what all of Cowboy Bebop is about. All of our characters have personal issues, but they're so immersed by their own problems that they neglect to see the problems of others.
I'll never see Mars.
Our protagonists ignore the emotions of others' lives in favor of the money that could be offered to them to advance their own journey of closure. The title of the DVD even says they're here to save the planet, but not for free, implying that they aren't going to help anyone else unless it helps with their own personal lives. Eventually we see that there isn't much difference between our bounty hunters' search for closure and the bounties that they were after. In fact, when Spike says the opening line of the movie, he's not just talking about Vincent. He's talking about himself as well.
It was just that he was all alone, always by himself. Never anyone to share the game. A man who lived in dreams. That's who he was.
And sets up the theme for the rest of the movie. While Vincent is alone because he lost all of his memories, Spike feels alone because he's not around Julia. When Spike talks about games,
Never anyone to share the game.
this is in reference to the game of life. And the games that Spike and Vincent play are a reflection of how they choose to play that game. Jet even tells Spike,
Shogi is like a mirror. It shows your true personality.
Vincent plays Solitaire, a one-player game where
If there's only one left, you win.
reflecting his destructive ways. And while we see that Spike is playing shogi with Jet, we see that he's truly uninterested in playing the game with him. Symbolic of him being uninterested in bounty hunting with Jet. And winds up nodding off to sleep. Spike falling asleep is also in reference to the line,
A man who lived in dreams. That's who he was.
dreams in Cowboy Bebop represent people's desires. And since Spike has a real desire, being with Julia, he really sleeps,
You do nothing but sleep.
implying he does nothing but dream about her. And while Spike finds closure in both his literal and figurative dreams, because they're real desires, Vincent has dream-like dreams of the butterflies, but since they're not real dreams, he finds no closure in them.
I've been having a dream, and though I realize it's a dream, I still can't wake from it. You saw the butterflies, didn't you? I also see them, countless in number.
But since that's the closest thing to a dream he had, he thought he had to do what the butterflies wanted in order to find closure, which is to cause destruction. And since the nanobots took away Vincent's memories on Titan, Vincent wonders,
Did I die on Titan long ago?
because that's where he lost all memories of his desires and his love, all memories of Elektra. This is why the only person Spike ever opened up to about Julia was Elektra.
Strange. You're the first person that I ever said this to.
For the same reason Spike recognizes Elektra in the alleyway, because he recognizes that they're both trying to get back to the love they've once known. They open up to each other in jail, because it symbolizes that they're both imprisoned by their emotions. At one point, Spike mentions,
I didn't have the slightest fear of dying. But then I met a certain woman and it changed.
Spike had no fear of death until he found love with Julia. So when Vincent said,
I have no fear of death.
Spike recognized this within himself, which is why Spike sarcastically replied, saying,
You're an original, aren't you?
when Spike and Vincent didn't have love in their lives, they had no fear of death and became cruel. Vicious says the embodiment of this in the show,
When angels are forced out of heaven, they become devils.
implying that when someone is forced out of love, they become cruel. Vicious says the embodiment of the movie because both Vicious and Vincent shows us what could have happened to Spike if he never had love with Julia. Which is why Vicious says,
The same blood runs through both of us. The blood of a beast who wanders, hunting for the blood of others.
implying that Spike was once cruel, just like Vicious. But since Spike did find love with Julia, he says,
I've bled all that kind of blood away.
and Spike recognizing why Vincent doesn't have a fear of death, is why he says,
We share the same soul.
the robber in the movie foreshadows this theme, that when someone is forced out of heaven, they become devils.
You see this logo? That's your security company. I used to work for those guys not long ago. They laid me off when they restructured, so now I'm a thief. Ain't that ironic?
The same way Vincent was forced to lose his memories and the memories of love, so he became cruel. The robber also shows us a supporting theme through the movie, the use of protein or meat. How each character reacts or treats protein or meat is symbolic of the character's position on love. The robber says,
That one ingredient that makes it a stew. And do you know what that is?
to which she replies,
The meat?
love. But the robber says it's anything but the meat.
That's what everyone says. The meat. But that same meat could be used for anything. It's the stew mix that makes it a stew.
Implying he believes in anything but love. This is why Spike longs for meat and protein in his diet. The same way he longs for Julia, but she's not around either.
Tell me, have you ever heard of Protein Jet?
And since Vincent only knows destruction of the butterflies, his virus destroys protein. Which is why the virus is called the devil, because it destroys love.
Do you believe in the devil?
Someone made that devil. One in a vase.
This is why Spike's ship is pink, to represent his love for Julia. While Vincent wears all black, to represent death. It's also why he wears a warlock's hat towards the end of the film, symbolizing he wants war. Vincent couldn't tell what was reality and what wasn't. He couldn't tell what was a real dream and a fake one.
Is this world just a dream that these butterflies are showing me? Are they part of the dream? Or are the butterflies real? And Titan just a nightmare?
Until he sees Elektra, and remembers what was real to him, his real dream, and his real love.
I remembered. She's the one I used to love.
And since Vincent remembers his real dream, instead of the fake ones of the butterflies, he says,
Electra, of the days that I have lived, only those I spent with you seem real.
And at the end of the movie, we are met with the opening line again, while seeing Spike's real dream of love and Vincent's fake one of destruction.
It was just that he was all alone, always by himself. Never anyone to share the game. A man who lived in dreams. That's who he was.
And we're met with the question,